All right. I decided I would just spend just a minute here. Uh, at the end of part two, I just say, okay, now finish dimensioning it out. As a few people stayed after class, I thought, and they had a few questions. I was like, oh, I'll add some of these. These were good questions. So, um, like, since we just came out of welding symbols, definitely that's probably not the issue. We'll just apply these welding symbols, point to the correct part, call it the right symbol as shown. But and nothing else. There was just a couple. Oh, one that I'm going to switch. If I look at my old way, my old drawings, if you're referencing, I'll pull these up over here. If you're referencing my old drawings, you know, it was pointed out that this 3 inches is to a hidden dimension. So this is not great. This is this is not ASME standard. So I'm going to pull this 3 inch dimension over here into my section view where I've got nice visible lines to dimension. So that one I'm definitely going to drop in over here. And so I'm going to update my imagery on my, but I'm just going to pick this surface. You'll start to get better with your dimensions, whether you're choosing kind of these surfaces or if you're choosing points. And so, sometimes it doesn't matter. Sometimes it's the same. I'm going to come out here with my 3 inch dimension though. And then somebody mentioned, oh, is that it? Or should it say minimum? And that's probably the most complete. So I'm just going into the text box here and you can either add stuff in front or behind, kind of like you would in CAD. And then I'm just going to add minimum. And I think I'll just say minimum. I will use all caps. We were also talking about this. You can see that just some of my part number names. I've used upper and lower case, kind of how I save my files. And so that's populating here as the part. It's essentially the part number, right? Which is what I want. Um, I don't have a hard standard for ISU. You may work for a company that has a hard standard that everything is in caps, or you may, work with these where most everything that I add to the dimensions or, my section view, anything I'm going to pull out of here should already add those caps to the correct, either capital or generally don't use lowercase, but it can end up in my file naming system. So, and it can even end up in yeah, in my titles, I maybe could because you can see it's anyway. That's just how I have my name. So I'm not super critical on that. You may work in an environment where it is critical, but I don't go through and change these. I'm just going to keep them populating with the part number that however I've named it in my file system. So, and then, but if I have an option, I will use caps. If it's something that I get to enter, then I'll use caps for sure. So. So I was going to add that dimension, make sure you add center lines here. So if I'm doing center lines, between here and here, and just pull these out. So I'm just doing my center mark, center lines, pulling them all together. I like this to be shown together. I added a center mark here and then just pulled that through for the vertical center line. Since these are all cylindrical shaped parts here, I have a crosshair here as well. Carrying my dimensions is where I've pulled my center lines to. And what else would I show? I kept on the hidden lines here. I mean, sometimes if they get too busy, this is just an assembly, so um, if I can, I'll leave them on. If there's not a good reason to, or if they just get too busy, I'll toggle that off. Let's see. So nothing too. Was there anything else? I added this dimension and I made, this was me checking that I was at modeled height at 19, and I just added adjustable from 14 to 19 in my description under the as part of the text, just like I did with um, uh, my minimum dimension I just added. So then I've just got some angular dimensions, and this one is just a leader line text. I think this 10 inch, I no, I think that's a dimension that I've added, and I know it's a diameter. Um, I'm calling that out because it just matches that much pipe. So, this is technically a pull out a radius. So the other thing I've showed some people, let's do that one because this one came up on other things and I'll use it on sheet two as well. So when I'm dropping a dimension and it's going to recognize this as so I'm gonna go to the inside of this because that's kind of where my critical dimensioning is. The outside doesn't matter. This is what has to match the 10-inch pipe. So if I select this, its default is to be radius, like it should be. That's a good standard, right? Normally, if it's not a complete circle, it's radius. But if I just, I've only left click once on that, and I haven't left clicked again to place this. But if I right click while I'm in the middle of the command, it comes up with this dimension type. And depending on the geometry that you've selected, you may have different dimension types here. And so what I changed this to was a diameter. And in this particular case, I changed it to a diameter, and then I got this leader line here that I think I just dropped anywhere, and then I can stretch it out. But what I added underneath it was what to match, or it has the dimension to match. Did I say 10-inch OD pipe? I think I said like this 10-inch pipe OD. I'm looking to match the 10-inch pipe OD. Is that what I wrote? I probably wrote it wrong, but let me just say okay on this. I'll escape my dimension command so I can move this. But now I have control over moving this wherever it's going to be kind of most beneficial and works well for me, right? It's kind of a pain to decide where I want to put stuff. And keep it at a 45. Ooh, I don't know. I need to move this one more up. I don't know, something like this, but just a little bit further up. I might be able to pick the center on that or go through center. That's kind of nice and clear. A little crowded here. I think this spacing is a little bit off, but this one can go up. I think I can come down even a little bit more. I know my title blocks take up just a little bit more room. I think I just slide this guy down. Not really adding any new notes to those, so this might work. We've already removed this thing, so I can move out of orthographic alignment. So I've got some more dimensions, all my weld symbols to add. That one I just wanted to show you to select that dimension type. Every piece of geometry might have some different dimension types we can use. So let's use that again. Let me just take one quick preview if there's anything else on this particular sheet. So I'm not going to cover that. This one's critical though, right? But now that section view is exposed, these will be easy to pull those dimensions. I just added the all around. That's the clearance all the way around. I've got a few more that I pulled. Some are arguable. You'll see me on a lot of my assemblies. Maybe I put some dimensions that aren't the most useful, and that's 16.31 isn't the most useful, but it kind of gives me, when I'm done and finished or whatever assembling this thing, even if it's just to check it before I send it out in the field to use. I can kind of put it at a 19-inch height and just measure that these things are coming out pretty close. I could catch maybe something that was really irregular, like say they had radius me apart, but it wasn't the full 60 degree that we wanted here. And so anyway, I could catch stuff like that maybe it would be bad to catch it at the final stage, but better than out in the field. So this one, and they have some 60-degree marks there. Those shouldn't be too hard. This is one where I tell you, you start to get picky on whether you're picking points or midpoints or lines when you're doing your dimensioning. This 60, I don't think works well if you go like here to a point. It wants to pull that as a linear dimension. Maybe I could choose angular, but I don't think it gives me the option. So really the dimension that works best here is to say it's actually this line and how it lives in space, not a point on it. And then this particular dimension here. So there's some crisscrossing. That's okay. 60-degree. I could put both. I think I ended up throwing on both of mine. You could say typical, maybe. Typical is the lazy route. That's all right now. I think I just dropped both of them on, and then I just had to pull this out a little bit more, a little bit off my other dimension. Hold my breath just right. Something like this. I think I crisscross anyway, don't I? Yeah. Yeah. They're both dimension lines, actually. Crossing dimension lines. It's okay. I don't know. There probably is a quick break to that. I haven't been using it in Inventor like I do in CAD. Maybe I'll dig it up. It's probably just some right click away. Just not off the top of my head, I know. So yes, I've got to add the rest here, right? And somebody else asked, like, mine is BB, the section view titles, and it really doesn't matter to me. I think it keeps kind of a running list, but sometimes it'll start with random alphabet numbers. You don't feel like it should be the. I didn't do another section view. I don't know why it's not AA. Maybe I did place one and then deleted it. And then anyway, if you do that, it just kind of keeps a running order, right? You can always go back and relabel them. We didn't worry about it a lot in some of the industries I was in, because as long as it was populating a new one and then I could find it on a sheet or wherever it was, as long as it was clearly labeled and there wasn't a repetitive one in my print set. Because once they go through the alphabet once, they might start double. I think the program will start double doing the alphabet. So you'll have AA, and then if you get all the way to ZZ, then AA comes around again. I think they go AA. I think they double it up. So you have like, yeah. So some print packs can run, to where you're double, they're double labeled maybe. I would wonder if that's default. I think I've seen it. So we'll never get there, but I can change that. I think if I just edit this view, don't just edit it here. I want to see right here. It's the view identifier. It's picking B, but if I decided, well, I hadn't used A in my drawing, this is where you have to be careful. If you don't know, you'd have to preview a pretty big drawing set if there's a lot of drawings to make sure you're not redundantly using the same one, which could cause confusion. But you can reswitch that here. It'll relabel the actual section view labels. So in my case, AA is what I would start with. I'd be interested if I do another one if it goes to BB next or if it goes to CC. I don't know. I'm not gonna worry about it. But so that's why I think we wouldn't worry about it, is it can become this little like domino effect of relabeling and maybe mislabeling things. Well, I'll just let it randomly pick another, I'm not, I let that one slide. I'm like, yeah, if my first section view is CC, as long as it's not named like anything else, roll with it. They're just identifiers. So that's that. That's how I would change that. Sheet two, I want to show you one little thing that I was dimensioning here. So I haven't dropped these other views. I want to go through that too. I've dropped these two, and I need to do some center lines and pull some center lines and get some more complete dimensioning over here, thickness and stuff. This is my part detail sheets essentially. But this one you can see that I've detailed. Let me see. I'm just giving myself a little room to dimension there. Let's see. Sheet two. Yeah, I've got a similar thing there. I kind of to match 10-inch pipe OD, to match 10-inch pipe OD. Yeah. And then, oh yeah, a few people asked me about my dimensioning here. It's kind of worthless dimensioning in some ways. I mean, the material thickness it's already 3/8. So this is, not a super critical dimension to have. It's just maybe a nice to know, but it's really driving by the material is driving the thickness. But I've got a couple radiuses called out, an outer radius and inner radius. This is to match this. When this stuff kind of gets formed partially like this, the technicians usually have some type of a reference guide to judge if the radius matches. If it's rolled, I mean, shops are different, I get it, but a lot of them have like templates for different diameters, and they can just quickly hold up a little pattern to see if they've either step broke or rolled this thing correct. Um, Especially where if they're still manually operating machines and robots aren't controlling that stuff. So, which is still pretty common in the industry, a lot of manual operations. I mean, yeah. But so some of these dimensions I view as just mostly reference dimensions. I could put parentheses around this 3/8 really if I thought about it, but gives them kind of a rough idea of maybe how wide that'll finish when they've got it rolled to the right radius. So um, so why I'm doing this is, so let me show you how I put these dimensions on there. I think they're just uh, changing the dimension type essentially. So if I'm like saying I need to dimension this particular radius, it's going to default be a radius, but if I just don't place that yet and say right click and then change this to like an arc length. So, and that's what I think I've applied to mine. It's kind of this weird, it has an arc length over it, that symbol, so I can just tell it's kind of the length of the material if I measured it there. And then I think I added something. Oh, I added as a reference dimension, which might be selectable. I don't know if reference dimension is one that is like reference. Yeah, just reference. It didn't seem like CAD had that option, but this one does. So I really said it's that, but it's not like it's not really my part length. It's weird. If I put a measuring tape around the outside of this, it would measure that potentially close to it. But this is what's confusing, and this is what confuses people that also work in this particular like sheet metal material or plate rolling. When we actually figure what we call the stretch out, which is how long of a part I need to cut to do what our part's doing. That's why a flat pattern creation is really fast because it just calculates that for us. But and that's why if I look over on let me just show you, this thing says it's 1204. If I jump over to cut file sheet here, let me escape my command so I can. You'll notice that the part actually measures 11.6 in its flat pattern. This is the same part, only, inventor has made it flat for us. And so really where this dimension comes in, if I go back to my other sheet now, is if I were to be able to hold a measuring tape from if I could dimension, let me just try it from here. I don't think it'll pick up this arc unless I did a sketch because it won't recognize This I don't think is an arc length because it's just not the right geometry, right? I don't have that. So I'd have to draw a sketch to check this, but where that dimension should be coming from is from these midpoints. Midpoint to midpoint, that should measure 11.6, roughly so. And the ID would be even shorter. So it's just that this OD measures a little bit longer once it's been formed, then the ID measures a little bit shorter. And it's because we're not dealing with things that are just flat with no thickness. We have actually, a thickness involved in this. And so the way flat patterns are figured are towards the median of the thickness. So if I could put an arc in the middle of this, it should measure roughly that. So this is just kind of a reference dimension that, oh, once I get it formed and I pulled it, wrap a tape around the outside, which would be quite easy to do. To wrap a tape on the inside is kind of like you have folded inside. It's kind of weird. I mean, they have flexible tapes like a fabric tape measure, but really just to roll a tape measure around the outside, I could quickly identify this part because sometimes your prints are just used for part identification. If this has been formed, it doesn't measure what it flat anymore. So if I have a pile of these, if they're not etched or something, how do I recognize them? Well, I got a few dimensions here to help you. Um, and this one, yeah. So I feel like this is the next dimension I added was probably this line, and it wants to either do ASME standard, kind of pull this out like X, Y. I can just right click and say, what kind of dimension type? Well, I can do an aligned one here. And if you remember, CAD had kind of an aligned one. They're not our go-to dimensions generally. So let's place this here. And I could even call it a reference dimension. It would make me actually just a little bit happier because really it's caught there. It's 0.375. This is just kind of a reference thickness to 2 decimal place. And then I just added that node on there. And then I added a few overall dimensions here because this is a helpful dimension. I can identify this part this way here. And then I think I took the overall width, and I did put center lines on these for sure because they are, this is curved, right? So I should drop a center line this way. Hope I have that on my other part. And let me see. I like this. Let me just check that I see it. Yeah, I didn't drop that there. See? It should be. It's curved, and I could even drop in a center mark there, although it might interfere with my note like it did on the front page. But if I think, I can see sometimes this one might get dropped, but it's still good. Actually, I do like it as long as I can get my view separation and I have room. Sometimes I line up my titles, but not always. If I can line up my title, you might see me do that a little bit. When I line up views, I actually don't line up views as much as I line up titles. So from part to part, yeah, if I'm trying to, that's my preference, but the other drafter preferences too. Let's see here. So this, I do like adding these center lines on here because it is a curved part. And the last, so then I don't know what else I've got. Maybe I'd move this off the center line if I drop it on there. Those ones should have all center marks, and they should be through that way. Let's check myself that way here. So yeah, I added those ones through and pretty good. So this one here, let's place these parts, an upper and a lower pipe support. And my name will be slightly different. That's okay. So let's place those. One of them is my pipe upper, like this one has the cope in it. So I'm kind of being strategic with this one. My front view is not going to be my front view if I just look at my view cube here. Here's front view is how it's going to come in. I actually want this to probably display. What I like is I like to display when I pick the rectangular view to show this, I do want to display this cope like this. I think I don't want to display it like this. It's a little bit confusing to look at that cope that way. And it doesn't give I mean, you can see the profile changes quite a bit actually. I think this is easier to understand how that part is or the preparation that needs to be done to this part is easier to understand from this view over here. And then this is just a single radius. This to me shows the best part detail on how to put that curvature in it. And then it will kind of look like this if I spun it 90 degrees in my hand. But this looks confusing a little bit, right? By the shape of the material and the contour of how that cut looks in that other 90-degree turn. So I want to think about placing this one. And typically I think on my drawing, I ended up placing it like this. And then I think I just used for my front view, I just used this particular side right here. So it's kind of like bottom. If I look at bottom reading down like that, maybe that should be my front view, and then I can pull this right side view off it. So I'm already, so if I come back over to my drawing, I don't even have it yet, but because I've been looking at it, if I just go to base view, that's going to be the first part that shows up. Of course, this is the parent view, which I want it to be the round view. But so I think maybe if I take this, what do we say? It was like bottom, but then rotated maybe. So the bottom was reading this way. And then I had a left or right side. See that that's gonna put that curvature like that. So this is me being a little strategic. And it also it's me having an understanding that this is the best view of that, which that comes with time. What did I do? Like maybe a third view? Did I go that small? These are quarter views, this third view. Yeah, maybe I'll put the parts label underneath the front view. And then this is my two views of this particular part in order to detail out what I need to detail, right? So that one's strategic. And I got to place those center marks, got to place those center lines and start detailing that out. And I think I just probably added a little, kind of a little short dimension here. This one's kind of hard to dimension as well, right? What do I put on mine? Just something that it's coping to match. Oh, I don't even write that. I guess this one could be similar to how I've said that this is to match OD pipe. This could say cope. I would keep the radius there so we know at least, a dimension. But underneath it, I could add, to match OD of saddle, right? I mean, that's just how it goes together. It can be helpful. Maybe it's overkill. I used it here, and and then somebody was asking this, and this is because I've used a jog dimension in order. So let me see what just kind of naturally comes out. Maybe it's kind of odd, but it's like a dimension of this pushes it way out away, which is fine if you have room, right? Like I could actually technically drop this dimension, drop my dimension here, say okay, and I could pull these away because this would be okay too, as long as I have room. Could pull these out. I mean that center point of that radius is a ways out there. I could even add the center mark to that. Would put that out there, and I could take the place of this. I would tuck these probably way in like that maybe, but I want this to come in. So I could do. I mean this is okay. This looks pretty good to me, even if I move this down and around or something. Either way. If you don't have room for that, I think I can add this. I think I can make this jogged. Even if I select it after I've dropped it, it can go to. No, it can't. It cannot go to. Well, what are my options? Oh, it jogged. It is an option. Leader from center, arrowheads inside. I don't know. It does. So jogged gives me that little Z, and I think it just gives me a few more. Like I could technically kind of condense this in, is what I think I did. And I didn't even have the center mark on here. So I think either are fine. I don't even think I would pull that over to that dimension. I think I just let it float like I did on mine. It's just kind of a weird jog dimension that the radius of the cope is 5.75. So would it be better as a diameter? I don't know. Yeah. Tomato tomato. I did the diameter over there. Kind of funny to think I do different things, but I think I just added this. It's a nice finish length. I didn't really add any diameters. You could. It's the 2.5 inch Schedule 10, which just controls that. It's the same difference here. Should I put it? If I put it, should I put it as a reference dimension? Yeah, probably. If I want to do that, it would be a diameter, so it would be from here to here. It recognizes that as a diameter when I select it that way. And so if you want to add this one, you could. I would just add it as like a reference dimension probably because what's really driving it is the pipe OD size when I purchase it. So it's just kind of a reference dimension and then the overall length, which to that one to me, because it's kind of weird, I would pick a point out here. This is kind of the finished profile. Um, and I've seen them like to know the ID profile here, but I think every fabricator could be different and maybe company could have a standard there, what they like to put in there. So I'm going to keep finishing this out. I've just got to add some center lines, more dimensions. I'll kind of update my imagery on Moodle or sorry on Canvas to be the newest, and I'll update my dates. This will be my new drawing. So Anyway, I'll swap that out. I got my rev as 0 to start with. I'll end up having 3 sheets. State my command. This sheet is pretty much done. This sheet's actually done. I don't really need to add anything to it. Oh, except for I'm going to delete these. Sorry, some of you maybe forget, but I'm going to delete that. And I don't really have any general notes on this either. My people, they're going to cut these parts for me. Will know that this is 1/2 inch, this is 3/8, kind of carrying that. Some places will add that redundant, like big, like just add a multi-text box and say, and then really break up, especially if I have more parts than just this. If I have a lot of parts, I do bundle them by material type and what I can fit on the sheet and then the next sheet. And if I have multiple sheets of multiple, different materials, I'll try to, put all the parts that are one material on the same sheet and have however many sheets of that material before I move to another material and have those sheets. So yeah, let's see. And scale the same way. I try to use that mentality to prevent any machine interpretation error there. And then yeah. The other pipe didn't matter. Yeah, the upper one. Sorry, the lower one. When I bring this thing in here as a base view, I think I'll just bring it in with the title, but just even with the bottom front is great, like bottom, because it's just square cut. So if I bring this in, third scale, yes. Oh, sorry, I should have done a projected view. I'll do one more projected view here, this one. Once you select it, you just gotta say create. And I'll do my center lines and everything on it. But it's just a square cut part. So I could drop a reference diameter in and a length, but that one doesn't need any special work. It's just like a chop saw, chop off that, ready for assembly. A little deburring. But this is second sheet in this, so it hasn't had a revision on that sheet yet, so I shouldn't even have a revision block there. So what I'm saying is I probably could delete these. I didn't do it on my other sheet. I'll jump back over. Oh, I did delete it. Yes. So now that's in its simplest form. I still try to leave some areas for the revision history in the future. But this will be the only revision history block I need right now. And before I get done, I'll add something like send to production. You probably saw I spelled that wrong, right? ION? Maybe I did spell it wrong. And then I'll change the date to this year. What's the 17th? 2/17, 2026, if I can get it in there. Oh, I gotta cite my author. I'm it. Be my initial. Usually what shows up down here I'm drawn by, which I haven't toggled that on yet either. Is there anything? Yeah, which I just gotta go to my iProperties for this particular sheet to toggle that stuff on. I'm the author, so I just use my initials. Apply that. It's picking up today's date already. No, it's picking up the date of sorry. I'll change my date to today in here, right? I just choose this one and select today for my first, if this is when I'm done and ready to send to production. These dates on mine match. This date could be an older date, like when I started it maybe, and it was going through all of its checking process. And there could be, a month, depending on how long, it could be several months later that from when you started the drawing and kind of that initial start stage to when the gets sent, and the check date's probably different. And I didn't really worry about the material being updated. I haven't updated my parts, but I think if I just updated the pipe support here, if I just update the physical properties here, I think it will, yeah, factor in all the other ones. Let me just close this because this should be communicating downstream to my parts. Now let me just see if my part, so there's the whole mass for the entire assembly. Let me just see if it updated my part masses. It did. So just, you don't have to go through all the parts and update those masses. These will not line up for, that's okay with me though. In fact, I'll probably move this one down as close as I can and gain a little more space here. And I might even gain a little more space with this if I don't even use any dimensioning. Bring this down a little bit more, something like this. I like this. And whether I divide this up, I think some industries can require you to do that. I don't know if that's like I've done it on a few of my drawings. To me, if they're clear views difference, then that's okay. But just be careful. Sometimes it's better to separate them with a quick just 2D sketch on your drawing and just sketch some lines that are really unconstrained, but I usually draw them just vertical and perpendicular, vertical and horizontal, and just keep them at, I don't usually do odd shape sketches where to capture drawings. I usually just kind of grid them out. So call that done, you guys. Part 3. I just wanted to catch that.